So welcome everyone. My name is Christy Carter and I'm here with my colleague from Independence First, Esther Anderson. And today we're going to talk about how we together can help LGBTQ people with disabilities, their family, and legal guardians navigate housing. So welcome. And I'm Christy Carter and I work, I'm the Aging Disability Coordinator at the Milwaukee LGBT Center. And I actually co-facilitate a disability support group with Esther twice a month. But I'll let Esther, you introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Esther Anderson. I am an independent living coordinator and also a benefit specialist at Independence First. And we're very glad to have you all with us today.
So these are the objectives of the session. We hope that by the end of the session, you'll learn some general information about HUD housing programs. We'll discuss how people with disabilities, their families, and legal guardians can access, understand, and navigate finding accessible and affirming housing opportunities in the community. And then we will discuss, the two of us, how our organizations, Independence First and the Milwaukee LGBT Center, can help promote advocacy and self-advocacy for people with disabilities. Hold on, I'm gonna let someone in. So, and I'll let them get connected so they can see the session objectives. So these are the objectives of the session, and I will let Esther begin.
All right. So first we have up just basic info about like HUD and also the Housing Authority of Milwaukee. So there's several different programs that people can get placed into. There's the Housing Choice Vouchers, which is like Section 8. Some of you guys might have heard that before. It's a wait list type of program. They basically are funded by the federal government and administered locally by the Housing Authority. It provides low-income families with vouchers to help them in paying their rent of housing in a private market units that have been inspected and meet the program's housing qualities. So basically, it's where you don't have to go into like a low-income housing like apartment building. You can actually go and find a private one and actually get it paid if it is inspected and approved through that program. There's also project-based vouchers. So that is basically where they assist with the cost of subsidizing housing in specific developments that are throughout Milwaukee area. They have currently 12 developments open that are accepting pre-qualifications. So that is also where you're going to that type of housing, your fee and rent will be cut down to like the 30% total. Then there's also just the public housing designated for seniors and people with disabilities. That waiting list, unfortunately, that waiting list is open. There are apartments all around Milwaukee area that qualify into this program. If you ever need a list of it, you can find it at the Housing Authority of Milwaukee. Also, I can send out a resource sheet later to you guys about all the housing stuff that we have in Milwaukee as well. So with the Section 8, unfortunately, right now, Milwaukee is not accepting any new applications for the housing Section 8 voucher right now. It was closed during the pandemic and it hasn't opened up back yet. People are still able to go and apply and get on like in their waitlist pool. But for the moment right now, you would have to apply at the Milwaukee Housing Authority, and it's all online. If you do need any accommodations or things like that, you can contact them and they can help provide you with what you need. The project-based vouchers, those are for anyone that's 18 or older who meets income qualification can apply for this. Usually the income requirement is around like 150% of the federal poverty level, and that is around, I believe, like 20,000 or so. So that's how much someone could make in a year and get added into that program. Then with the Section 8, who's eligible to apply? It's available to all U.S. citizens or non-citizens who have eligible immigration status. Mixed families will receive prorated assistance. You may enroll yourself and up to 2 other households. but all the households have to reach the income limits. I have displayed the income limits from 2018. They have not been updated on the actual site for this year yet, but as it seems, Section 8 isn't really a thing that's going on right now. But it is a good thing. The program allows them to actually pay for most of your whole entire rent. It can be up to that. So it's a really good thing to utilize if you are in that low income base. So the adult disabled housing program, that is actually open right now for all applications. You do a pre-application online at the Milwaukee Housing Authority. And then once you complete that, they actually mail out the application to you. You complete it at home and you mail it back in. The income restrictions for it is one person at 52,850, and then the two-person family would be $60,400. The rent cost is usually generally based off of 30% of your income, and the security deposit will equal 1 month's rent or $150, whichever is greater. The first month's rent is required at the time of leasing, but there are some waiver programs that they do have that you could actually get that first month's deposit paid for. So with the approval process of the adult disabled housing program, people who get approved or send in their application, they get looked at their credit report, criminal history, even their rental history. Applicants will be allowed to stay in the process. You'll know if you get approved, but there's a waiting time. And that's a huge barrier that we deal with in Milwaukee, especially when we go into these programs, is the wait lists that are around, especially for the main like condos or apartment buildings that's mostly deemed for people with disabilities. So the amount of time you'll be waiting on the list depends on the date and time you applied for the housing, your preference on like the list, so which places, complexes you do choose, the anticipated unit availability. There are some places out there that have waiting lists like up to 3 years. There's other places that have 1 year. It all just depends on where you decide that you would like to reside at. So at the time of the pre-application, they'll ask for like 6 basic pieces of information: your first and last name, date of birth, all of the people that are in your household as well, your mailing address, social security number, phone number with area code, and email address. After they pre-apply, you'll get contacted via email once their name is selected and invited to complete an application to determine eligibility. Right at the bottom is the link that you could go to, and you'd have to go to the applicant login, create an account, and you could go apply and try to get into the program as well.
So Esther, I know we've gone through a lot of information. Do we want to stop and ask if people have questions yet?
Sure, go right ahead.
Does anyone have questions about the information that's been provided thus far?
I have a question about the Section 8, because I was told that was almost impossible to get into, and about 6 or I don't even want to say 7 years ago, they did like an open thing where you could go to these county facilities and stand in line and then fill out an application, but you were never notified if you got in or you didn't. And so I've never been able to figure out if I was even on the list. How would you find out if you were on the list from a previous application?
So with a previous application, to find out if you're on a list, one thing that you could call and ask if you are on the waiting list. But from December 21st, 2021, anyone who had applied before that time, you have to resubmit a new application. A lot of it when it comes to Section 8 is they have such a large waiting list pool that every year or so it kind of gets wiped out and you have to reapply when they have their open enrollment periods. But if you do go onto the Housing Authority of Milwaukee and the portal, that's actually the link that I'm showing right now. If you go in there and you submit your application, it actually tells you the status of it and where it is and if it's actually still in their system. So that could be helpful.
Unfortunately, I have a phone and that's what I'm using because my computer's acting up. So I
Can you see
can't.
the chat?
Yeah, I can see the chat, I think. Yes.
I will drop the link into the chat right now for you. And I can also send out an email later too.
Yeah, because I will be sending everything that's in this presentation plus the video to everybody that's here, plus people that registered that are not here, so that you will have all this information.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions about the housing programs?
The other thing that I was going to ask is when you, I'm disabled, and so when you say, but I'm just curious when you said some places are those just in Milwaukee that the ones you refer, or are they in Milwaukee County, City of Milwaukee?
So they have places everywhere. We actually at Independence First has a housing resource list. So if you're ever looking for these specific type of complexes, we have them for Waukesha County, Ozaukee County, Washington County, and Milwaukee County. Those are the 4 counties we serve. So we have housing lists based off of certain criterias that we can send out to you as well if you ever want to see what might be out in the other areas.
Okay. For me so far, those are my questions so far. Thank you.
Okay.
So they provide an accessible housing list through HUD, which is the Housing and Urban Development Department. At this link, you could go and find all of the properties that they have right now here in Milwaukee. It's usually concentrated down in the downtown area, but they provide a list of all the different accessible apartments, that kind of thing. One thing that's really cool that's starting to happen here in Milwaukee, we have a Milwaukee Housing Initiative. So they're starting to take schools that were used to be used for like elementary school or high schools, that type of thing, and they're actually creating them into affordable housing. So for example, they just created an 82 unit of affordable housing in a place formerly called Phyllis Wheatley School. They're working with a home investment partnership program, but this is, I believe, the 3rd one that they have created in the last couple of years. So they're starting to make more of these type of things, so accessible housing will become more available to people around the Milwaukee County area. And then questions, unless Chrissy has something she would like to add.
No, I just know that a few folks on here are not from the Milwaukee area. So Esther, do you want to explain, just kind of talk about Independence First and what they are, as far as ILCs?
Yeah,
just
for sure.
Folks could probably look in their state or where they're from and find similar resources, if that's okay, just in general.
Yeah, totally fine. So I work at Independence First. It's an independent living center. They are located all around the United States. So we are a consumer-driven based organization. We have 51% of our staff actually have disabilities themselves. So we kind of like a peer-run organization in that aspect. We provide 5 different kinds of services. So we have advocacy, we have independent living skills training, we have peer support. Okay, do this, Esther. Transition, which is diversion, or someone like that lives in a nursing home. They try to get them back out into the community. And then I'm missing one. Anyway, so we do advocacy. We have advocacy teams. People can join them, or if you have like individual advocacy issues that you need help with, such as I've worked with people that have had workman's comp issues, not understanding exactly what lawyers are telling them, that kind of thing. We go out and advocate for that. We go and advocate at like the Capitol for different types of things for people with disabilities. When it comes to independent living skills, we have many different types of workshops, from anywhere from home management to like money management. It goes to social skills, cooking, getting your driver's license, any type of skill that you would like to learn, you can come to the center and receive the services to help you get and reach that goal. With the peer support program we have a bunch of peer support groups, so you can be around other peers, talk about your daily lives. Some of them actually have like fun activities included with it. We have like an art one, an all women's one, an all men's type of peer support groups. We also have a mentoring program, so you could get paired up with some other people and have a mentor or be a mentor for someone. And that is basically what we provide at Independence First.
Sounds good. And then most states have ILCs, right?
Yeah, so in the state of Wisconsin, we have 8. All states do have it. If you ever are looking for other types of ILCs around the nation, Nickel is the National Coalition of Independent Living. That is a really good organization you can go to and find out more information about other independent living centers around the United States.
Thanks, Esther.
Mhm.
I don't have any more questions, but if anyone else does, we have questions. And then I have kind of a little bit of resources related to specifically to LGBT information. So, but this is your time, so ask away.
I just thank you for answering that. I just want to say, my name's Nem, and I'm actually in Maine, and I work for Equality Maine. But we're really trying to, I'm really trying to expand the services that we offer to our disabled community as well. And I met Christy recently, and so she invited me to this, and I'm so happy to be able to like see what Milwaukee's doing, because I think you all are doing some really cool stuff in this area right now. But also it's an hour later here and I'm cooking dinner. So I'm sorry that my camera's off, but I am paying attention, and thank you for letting me be here. I really appreciate it.
You're so welcome. We're glad you're here.
Also good to see your face, Christy.
Same.
I know earlier, Stephanie, you had asked about funding, access to funding and such. When it comes to funding for housing or that type of thing, there are plenty of places that you can go to now to kind of get that access. The Housing Authority of Milwaukee actually does have some programs that you can go and get rental funding, emergency funding. Let's say like you're getting close to being evicted or someone's having issues paying their security deposit. They do have programs that are provided so you can get assistance with that. Another place you could go to is Legal Aid of Milwaukee. They also have a funding program that's happening right now to assist people with like first month's rent, direct deposit, or oh gosh, why can't I think of it right now? Your first month's deposit, that kind of stuff. So those programs are also available for funding.
Well, I'd like to follow up on that if I can. I was in an apartment for 10 years and then they raised the rent significantly, and I had to move in with my mom until I could find another place to live, and that's what I've been looking for. But I really wanted to stay on the south side of the city. I'm real familiar with that area. I'm real comfortable there, but you know, it's housing is next to. I mean, I had talked to somebody from the housing, Paul Williams, and it just didn't seem like there was a lot offered. And then I thought maybe if I got on a list, because I knew they were doing some building of complexes that had public housing as part of the, I don't know, as part of the package. And so I've been pretty discouraged, to be honest, because the places that I've looked at, you know, and I'm afraid to even look now, because every time you watch the news or anything, you hear that rents are going up even further than they were, you know, before the pandemic.
Yeah, I completely understand that. So we have information and referral. That's the last service that I forgot about. So we have an information and referral specialist at Independence First. He is phenomenal at his job. If you give him a call, he can actually assist you in looking at different housing opportunities in a specific area location that you would like to be in. They're not all the ones that are actually on the housing list. He actually goes and researches on his own to assist people. So if you would like his number and his name, I can definitely give that to you. And that's a great resource you could use as well for funding and other things.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Do you want his number right now?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So his phone number is 414 226 8377. And his
Okay,
name is Philip Corona. Corona like the beer, Corona.
okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a in the housing or the city of Milwaukee, is there a place where they list when they're, when new construction is going up, that they have committed to put in X amount of units for us, people? Is there?
So there isn't really like a list of like what places, like they have information about like new housing developments that might be going up or like newspaper articles of them. Most of the develops, because of due to the ADA, people do have to, when they create new developments and it's over a certain number, they have to provide accessible housing as well inside of the apartment complex. It usually is, if I'm correct, around like 10% of them have to have housing. So with all these new developments going up, they will have accessible apartments in them because it is per the ADA. If they don't, that is something that, the Department of Neighborhood Services, HUD and all that will have to take care of, but most of them will provide it. It won't be like every apartment is available for that, but they do have to have a specific number just designated to accessibility or also low income.
Okay.
Sorry, I can't provide more info about that. They keep the housing on hush hush a little bit around here.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but my old alderman said, that there was one that was going up, and then it was already full by the time I got a hold of somebody. So anyway, thank you.
Any other questions or thoughts before we go on to the second half of the presentation? And this time I have Esther to talk a little bit too about the support group with me. Usually it's just me doing a pitch and talking about the great work that we do in the support group, but we're both on here, so that's super awesome. Okay, so we hope that you learned some general information about HUD housing. And then we discussed how people with disabilities, their families and legal guardians can access, understand, and navigate accessible and affirming housing opportunities for communities. And like Esther was saying, that's always changing. And unfortunately, it can get murky, but I'm here as far as if you're looking specifically for LGBT housing, which that right now we don't have as many opportunities for that as we would like, but Esther and I can work together to like either get you the resources or work together so that you feel comfortable in the housing that you are in. And then the last part of the presentation or the educational session that we haven't gotten to yet is how we're going to work together as organizations to help promote self-advocacy and help folks with disabilities that are LGBT. So
Another thing to add into, like what Chrissy was just saying, if at any time you guys need assistance, like with housing or just researching, getting the application down, all that kind of stuff, you can come to Independence First and work one-on-one with the coordinator, and they will assist you in researching for apartments, figuring out how to budget, all that kind of stuff that would go into getting a house. So that is also something we also provide.
And then I can speak to that a little bit too. So I've lived in Milwaukee for 15 years. When I came to Milwaukee and needed help with housing, I worked with Phil up Corona to kind of figure out the best that worked for me. And they help with all types of housing. So related to if you need Section 8 or subsidized to non-subsidized. So they'll help you with whatever and point you in the right direction. But also in another, when I wore another hat and worked at another job, I also suggested that a student that I worked with reached out to Philip for the same kind of resources because they needed help figuring out housing. So I guess what I'm saying is I can vouch for it. So it's a pretty good resource. Hold on, I have to let someone in. But we can go on to the next part. So as most of you probably already know, but this is always just good to go over, each of us have different layers to our identity, and LGBT people with disabilities are also part of the marginalized communities, whether it's related to age or your nationality or your ethnicity or something else. LGBT and our that part of our identity is just one part. So we are it's like peeling back an onion when you think of identities. Who am I? It's not as straightforward as we all would like to think sometimes, but it's important to look at all those pieces. So next slide. And then I'm just going to talk a little bit about the programs that I run at the Milwaukee LGBT Community Center. So we have the older adult program. There we do a lot of social activities. Unfortunately, they're still virtual. So we do social activities, but they're virtual right now still because of COVID. We hope to move to back in person or a hybrid model at some point soon, hopefully. But we also do educational sessions like this related to specifically older adult topics, as well as we have counseling and support groups. We have a weekly support group that it's actually called FAB support group, and it stands for 50 and better, or the Fabulous 50 support group. There are people who share their highs and lows of the week, and I can share things that are going on in the community, and they can get support. So we also have an advisory committee where folks can talk about what they'd like to see in programming and kind of advocate and make the change. So that's the program. We also have meal. We're a Milwaukee County Department of Aging meal site. So once a month, folks can come. They have to be 60 and older, but they can come and get meals that are nutritious and healthy. But we partner with many different other organizations like Independence First to do things like this, and also different virtual social activities as well. But as far as the disability program goes, that started 2.5 years ago. And when I came to Milwaukee, like I said, I'm from Illinois originally. When I came to Milwaukee, it was a gap that I had seen as a person that identified as LGBT and also having a disability. And 40% of people that identify as LGBT also have a disability. That's statistics through the Movement Advancement Project. So, but when I came on, we had an event where we could meet because there was a lot of new staff, and someone stopped in and goes, "Oh, Christy, I found somebody that looks like me. Do you work here? Or do you volunteer?" And I was like, "No, I work here. I just started." And they're like, "Well, it would be great to have a support group. Like we have a support group for like by people and older people, but what about folks with disabilities? And I was like, it's great that you reached, like, it's great that you said that. Like, it has been already in my plans, but like, it felt good and they felt good. They're like, I feel seen. And so I reached out to Independence First and talked a lot, and we collaborated. And the person that started it with me is no longer at Independence First, but it's picked up a lot of momentum, and our group, we are a small but mighty group. Wouldn't you say that, Esther?
I will say that.
So we have a disability support group that meets twice a month. I do educational sessions, like I said, with Esther and other organizations. And I reach out and do trainings for different organizations about how to be LGBT and disability affirming. So that's what I do in a nutshell and about center programming. Esther, do you want to flip to the next slide? So I just want to remind everybody, the center is big on making sure that everyone is safe and feels validated. So if you ever need anything, if something comes up and you're like, I don't feel safe or I need support, the center is here. We have counselors and people that can help basically set up a safety plan and talk you through how to make sure that you're safe and that you feel comfortable where you are. So I just want to make you all aware of that. And then Esther and I can talk about the great thing that's the LGBT disability support group. Esther, do you want to, you can share your thoughts. I want to give you space because I talk about it all the time on these. So
no, it's totally fine. So the LGBTQ plus and disability support group, it is a really good support group because we have intersectionality of the LGBT community and people with disabilities. Like I think there, Chrissy, you said there's like 40% of people who are part of the LGBTQ community also identify having a disability. So it's a really good group where we can talk about like different issues, even like the marginalization of things that happen, ableism. The group comes together and they talk about their own personal issues, and sometimes it's just venting or sometimes it's receiving feedback. So we talk about all that kind of stuff, and they've grown so close to being a group that they actually have a Discord group together where they actually talk to each other and have a Discord meeting on the weeks that we aren't meeting together as a whole. So it's a fun support group. A bunch of people just get to talk about a lot of different stuff pertaining to like healthcare benefit stuff. They always reach out if they have different questions about certain aspects of their life that they need help with, and we try to provide them resources.
Definitely. And it's just really cool because we can all work together to advocate, right? Kind of lift voices. So I learn and Esther learns every time we come into the group. It's really great. This is just so you know, it says Mondays at 2:30. It's the second and the fourth Mondays of the month. And this group is not just for Milwaukee. If you know people that are LGBT and disabled that live in another state, send them our way. Right now we have an individual that's not from the Milwaukee area. And yeah, so.
Anyone is welcome to join, and the more the merrier. So
yeah, the only thing that we say is the person must have a disability and they must be LGBT. Because we have plenty of spaces where, you know, we're kind of, we don't have the space or we're not in the majority. So that's why it's important that the folks identify as LGBT and having a disability. But if you need someone there to support you, that's fine too. We just ask that folks let people know ahead of time, hey, this is so-and-so and they're coming to support me while I'm here.
Stephanie, did you have a question? Your hand was raised.
You're muted, Stephanie.
I did, but then I was trying to figure out which Mondays it was, but then she was right on top of it and answered it, so.
Okay, awesome.
Yep. So yeah, Stephanie, if that's a group that you'd like to join, we'd be happy to have you. And this group is like, disability doesn't discriminate around race or age, so it's a multi-generational group. So,
Well, yeah, I'm almost 60, so I think I've kind of hit a couple different groups there. So
yeah. Yeah, and Stephanie, if you want to know it too, we can talk after, or I can connect with you after, because I can definitely share about some of the older adult programming as well.
thank you.
Yep. So I just shared a bunch additional resources. I mentioned the Movement Advancement Project, and that's where I got the statistics that I mentioned. So just so you have the awareness, and it's a few years old, but I always like to bring it up because I like to let people know that we're out there, we exist, and we need services and to be affirmed as well. And then just our website, as well as the Disability Resource Center, or ADRC. And then at all of our at all of our educational sessions or our programming at the center, it's important that we use the pronoun, like the person's pronouns that they wish us to use. We just put it on name tags, and it's just something that we do so that people feel affirmed and feel safe when they join groups. And that's something that we also do when we do introductions at the disability support group. So this is our information, both mine and Esther's. And like I said, I will be sending out a copy of the presentation, as well as a survey that I'm going to copy again that you can fill out if possible. It helps us improve for, at least for the center, to improve for new sessions. And also, since we are grant funded, it allows us to continue doing programs like this. So, and I just put it again in the chat. Does everyone see it?
Yes.
Okay.
Does anyone have any other questions they would like to ask?
I don't have any questions, but Christy and Esther, and one of my old job too, I covered disability policy, and you mentioned the intersection between disability and LGBTQ community is definitely one that I saw was lacking, especially on the national level, on the discussion about where those two communities meet and those needs. I know after the call we connect, but I'd love to chat a little bit more too, just about the work that you've been doing, kind of those challenges that you're seeing there, because definitely that's the problem that I think we're seeing with advocates too when you get higher up, and there's just not a lot of talk about disability in LGBTQ space. But yeah, so just wanted to say that and would love to connect afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks, Josh, for joining. Nem, I know you're making dinner, but do you have any questions?
Well, I have a question. What are you making for dinner?
Oh, kiddo.
Oh.
Quit being such a grump and say hi. No. We had some roasted cauliflower, and he's not happy about it.
Oh.
Where we're at with our evening. But thank you so much for letting me listen in on this, and thank you for being, I mean, like you were saying, Josh, I think that there's such a lack of attention paid to this specific intersection, and when you look at the statistics, it's kind of crazy. So I'm really, really happy that you all let me kind of just like peek in on what Milwaukee's doing, because I think you are doing some really cool stuff, and I hope that we can bring some of it out here to Maine too.
Yep. And feel free to send your folks to the disability support group if you'd like, so that can happen.
I will. I have so many folks who are ready to just sit and vent about accessing benefits. It's like the #1 complaint I hear. So
awesome.
I'm
Happy
actually a
Independence
benefits specialist at Independence First. So we do talk about benefits and other things that are occurring as well. So any questions, definitely can talk about the federal programs and stuff.
I'm gonna stop the recording now. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask because we do have a